This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Just the other day, I did a video, January 25th, about President Biden calling Peter Doocy, little Mr. Nepotism, calling him a stupid son of a bitch. And as part of that, I made mention, I'm going to play a brief clip from my show that day, where I talked about Donald Trump. I was talking about how the words of a president are important. So important, I'll just play the clip. Because it has to do with the title of, I can't hide the topic of the video. You clicked on it, you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, you know what this is about. But it's interesting that just a week ago, I was talking about this very thing that is now again in the news. Here's a clip from a week ago. Because what the President of the United States utters and thinks and believes and initiates as policy is important. So important that the documents that they handle in the Oval Office are logged for posterity's sake. Which is why it was such a problem that Donald Trump, in his rush to create everything to be secret, would shred documents into hundreds or thousands little pieces, which would then become the work of national archivists to tape those together. Because what a president does and says matters. So two things here. One, the reports that were from back in 2018 or whenever have been absolutely verified. We have quotes from the National Archives saying, yeah, we got documents that were all ripped up. Donald Trump, in an attempt to destroy evidence, to destroy things he didn't want to have seen, his efforts have been thwarted because he's a dumb shit. He's not good at what he does. Anything that he does, he's not good at, even destroying documents. And they have been put together. I'm going to read a little bit from this Washington Post article entitled, "Some Records Sent to January 6th Committee Were Torn Up, Taped Back Together, Mirroring a Trump Habit. The National Archives confirmed Trump's unusual habit of ripping up documents, which forced aides to attempt to piece them back together in order to comply with the Presidential Records Act." Now, just by virtue of the name, the Presidential Records Act, you should know that that's a law that was passed by Congress and signed by a previous president. So by Donald Trump destroying presidential records, he's breaking the law. One more crime add to the giant stack of Donald Trump's crimes. When the National Archives and Records Administration handed over a trove of documents to the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection, some of the Trump White House records had been ripped up and then taped back together, according to three people familiar with the records. Former President Donald Trump was known inside the White House for his unusual and potentially unlawful, come on, Washington Post, and potentially unlawful habit. What is happening with reporting in America? His habit? Chewing your nails is a habit, Washington Post. Destroying presidential records isn't a habit. His potentially unlawful habit of tearing presidential records into shreds and tossing them on the floor, creating a headache for records management analysts who meticulously use Scotch tape to piece together fragments of paper that were sometimes as small as confetti, as Politico reported in 2018. But despite the Presidential Records Act, which requires the preservation of memos, letters, notes, emails, faxes, and other written communications related to a president's official duties, the former president's infrangible shredding practices apparently continued well into the latter stages of his presidency. The National Archives on Monday took the unusual step of confirming the habit, saying in a statement that records turned over from the Trump White House included paper records that had been torn up by former President Trump, unquote. The statement came in response to a question from the Washington Post about whether some January 6 related records had been ripped up and taped back together. Some of the documents turned over by the White House had not been reconstructed at all, according to the archives. So when the documents that they turned over, some of them were just shredded documents, hand shredded by Donald Trump in an attempt to destroy them so they could not be read. That's what this is. It is Donald Trump more obstruction and obfuscation, attempting to conceal records. The archives transmitted over 700 pages of documents to the January 6th committee last month that included a melange of records concerning the events of January 6, 2021, including those that were torn up and reconstructed, according to 3 people familiar with the records who requested anonymity to reveal sensitive details. In its statement, the National Archives said that, quote, White House records management officials during the Trump administration recovered and taped together some of the torn up records. These were turned over to the National Archives at the end of the Trump administration, along with a number of torn up records that had not been reconstructed by the White House. The Presidential Records Act requires that all records created by presidents be turned over to the National Archives at the end of their administrations. So Donald Trump was not only doing this at the beginning of his term, and who knows what didn't get saved, he was doing it at the very end. Within 2 weeks of Joe Biden's inauguration, was feverishly destroying documents, hoping that they wouldn't be seen by future generations or investigators who might be looking into his myriad crimes. And yet, the Justice Department, apparently their hands are cold and they need to sit on them because nothing that I can see is getting done. A lot of people are making a lot of excuses, making guesses at what Merrick Garland is doing. Maybe it's a secret thing. Maybe they're just waiting. Well, maybe it's in the public interest that we know justice will be done, that we know justice will be blind. Maybe something should be done to hold Donald Trump accountable and his emissaries accountable for not only trying to steal an election, but for trying to overthrow the United States government. And now, an attempt to cover it up. Destruction of documents in a concerted, conspiratorial effort to cover it up. I don't know about you, but it's not good enough for me to hope. We'll just hope that they're getting it done. I'm going to continue to call for something to be done. Make it public. Because without public pressure, my fear is nothing will be done. It'll be another Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon situation. For the good of the country, we're going to move on. Let's put this chapter behind us. Which means stepping into another chapter where wealthy, white, privileged men, entitled men, get let off the hook. Because it would be too much. It's too much of a trauma for the country. The trauma is the continued entitlement of powerful people. That's the entitlement. What do you think? I would love to know. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me daily at Dollemore.com. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for putting up with me. Sometimes I'm a bit much. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore just about everywhere. And if I bring you value, if I do something for you that is worth $1.99 a month, please consider supporting my work. You can click the join button below, look into what it takes to be a channel member, or if you're more of a Patreon person, you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.